Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be talking about shadow work and why it's important and what is the best way to go through it. And because there's a lot of ideas on the internet, concepts around it. I would say most of them are not guiding the audience in the proper direction. You know, it seems like it's something that they just go through like for a few days, then they stop, or a few weeks, then they stop. Shadow work is essentially a lifetime work. It's a commitment to yourself. It's a commitment towards truth. Most importantly, truth. That's the most important thing when it comes to shadow work, because to acknowledge the truth is to bring light, and where there's absence of light, there's shadow, right? So the concept of shadow comes from Carl Jung, the great psychologist who basically categorized the psyche, the unconscious, into 12 different archetypes that are seen through the image of the mind by that can be seen by the mind as an image. So that's how we see certain things. That's how our brain thinks. We think with words, some people say, but it goes further than that. We don't think with words, we think with symbols. So it's not that we are like reading as we think. It's not words. We are thinking in terms of symbols. That's why tarot are very important, because they're symbols. And when we look at it, we are able to think. It's a mirror. So we think in terms of symbols, and Carl Jung knew this, which is an amazing discovery. It's one of the most important things that he laid out. So these archetypes in our psyche are vast, and one of the biggest archetype is the shadow. And the shadow contains so much information that is insane, absolutely insane. It contains information about our ancestral trauma. It contains information about all the betrayals, all the pain, all the fears of the past. All these stuff are in the collective unconscious. Okay, it's a field of consciousness that we are not conscious about, that used to exist in the past, but we're not conscious about. So, for example, every thought, even from your next door neighbor, is gonna deposit in that collective unconscious. So that's why it's called collective. It's the catastrophes, it's the wars, it's the fears, it's the angers, everything that has happened on earth, or everything that has happened even more closely, if you want to relate that, to your own ancestors, to your genetic code, to your parents or your grandparents, right? So all these traumas, all these happenings that took place in their life had deposited in the unconscious as a shadow, right? And that shadow as an archetype is very powerful to a point that it can um, basically control us like a doll if we are not aware of that unconscious. So the famous quote by Carl Jung is, he mentioned, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule over our lives and we will call it fate. So until we make the unconscious, which is the shadow, for example, this is one aspect, one archetype that we can look into, but it's one of the most solid archetypes, and the biggest one. That's why it's very popular when it comes to shadow work, and it's very important to do shadow work. But yeah, the unconscious should be made conscious. Once we are made conscious of the unconscious, that's shadow work. But not only that, there is a foundational element to it that Michael Tsarion mentions, and William Reich and Alexander Laumann mentions. But great thanks to Michael Tsarion for mentioning that. It's the aspect of psychosoma, that these things cannot be only unlocked with the mind, because the mind is the body and the body is the mind. They are one. So that explains a lot of things. That explains why when people tell us the truth, we have to digest it. That explains why the element of time is required for us to process it, for us to digest it. For example, when we eat, it's a thought that we think about, right? Process. So we think about eating, then we eat. Now it needs time. Now the mind can go on doing something else, right? But now the body needs time to process what you ate. The same thing with truth. When we bring light into the shadow, when we bring this truth into the shadow, it requires time to travel. But that light needs to be continuously being emitted, meaning that we have to be holding on that truth to be able to process it. And that's why change needs time. So when I confront myself as if I'm in front of a mirror, confronting myself, saying that I have been doing so and so, right? Whatever thing that I was doing in the past because of my shadow, because I was not aware of it, unconscious about it. I stand cold on the mirror and say the truth to myself. Okay, of course, that could be done metaphorically or physically. You can still do that, standing in the mirror and say it. But once we are honest with ourselves, once we are speaking that truth to ourselves, now the element of time needs to be respected. Now, instead of evading, letting out the truth, saying that, okay, maybe we break ourselves down. If we say the truth to ourselves, oh, I have been very very stupid saying this thing, or I was very reactive, or I was very emotional when I had to speak to that person, and starting to beat myself down, that is not giving yourself time. So a great aspect of shadow work is giving that time. So once we know that this is a problem, instead of falling into an endless loop of guilt and regret and shame, we hold space for the body, for the unconscious to be conscious, for the shadow to start going away. And we also integrate it in a way. Because yes, I was emotional, yes, I was behaving like an infant, for example. But there are more lessons to learn. It's not just that. Right? That is just the beginning. Maybe I have been doing it in several other ways as well. So once we stand with that truth, that is the beginning of shadow work. Then the next step is holding space for the body, physically and metaphorically, the body, which is the energetic body. Holding space for the manifestation of that truth. So we hold space. We do not fall into the endless loop of regret, nor we fall into the loop of denial of the truth. So many people would say, oh yeah, I was emotional, so what? Okay, I can get over it, etc., etc. And then they forget, then we'll do it again. So it's a polarity. That's when we have to work with the law of polarity. We don't have to be this or that. We have to stay in truth. Of course, we are aware of both of these things, so we hold space, we stay in our truth, and we adjust with time. Change needs time. We will go crazy if we have to say to ourselves that, oh, this is what I'm doing wrong, this is what I'm doing wrong, this is what I'm doing wrong, and expect change immediately. No. Our body has physiologically, has hormones, has stimulants, has habits ingrained in it. So to tell yourself that you're gonna change in an instant, it's impossible. You have to accept that change needs time, takes time. But what you have to be aware of is that process of shadow work, which is standing in truth. Because that is the first principle that I'm learning, is to stand in truth and allowing the manifestation. So this is the first step. Standing in truth, retaining that. Not beating yourself down because you didn't stand in truth back then. Or not just letting it fly over your head and missing out the whole journey. Shadow work is a journey. It's not something that you read in a book and then you get over it. No, it's a process. Because after 2 days you have to do it. You have to do this reflection. Right? It's a mirroring practice. It's a practice that we do on ourselves on a daily basis. Momentary basis. We have to observe ourselves. So after this process of integrating the truth, letting the light out in the darkness so the shadow can start going away, we have to allow time. But remember that we are standing on our side. We're taking our side. We're not betraying ourselves. So during that process of shadow work, we have to create a self, an identity. But our concept of self and personality in society is very fixed. It's based on fear. It's based on the social self-image. So it's a fake self. That's why we hold into our personality, into ourself. We think that it's bad to change. But it's in that letting go that we allow change to happen, and then we develop and grow. So, truth will change us, but we have to let go of that old personality. So, letting go of that old personality, first, of course, requires time, right? And requires flexibility. We have to understand that we are in this transitional stage, moving, progressing. So we don't want to beat ourselves down and put ourselves back in our evolution, and maybe even worse than when we were. We have to continuously progress, be progressive with ourselves. So when we give time to ourselves, we are embracing this aspect that our personality is not fixed. Oh, that scares a lot of people. That means I'm not predictable. Yeah. If you want to stand with truth, if you want to develop, if you want to continuously grow, be creative, you are not limited. And that's what makes people who want to control the world afraid of you and I and all the people who are standing with truth, is because we become unpredictable and we become uncontrollable. It's something that their AI algorithm cannot detect, or thinking cannot do. Those who fear change, who fear their personality changing, are scared of letting go of certain aspects in them. And those aspects in them are definitely coming from their shadow. They are maybe not letting go of aspects because of their relationship with their parents. They want to be better than their parent. They want to be richer than their parent. Whatever concept. They want to defy their parent. The human psychology is very deep, and to go into details, to be very specific, it requires self-integration. You have to go into yourself, go into your past history, and see what aspects you have to deal with, right? But it's not done immediately on a paper. It's done through this process of integration of the fittest. That would be a very good term. Integration of the fittest. Integration of the fittest thing that you have to change, and giving yourself time. And also, as you change it, be okay of letting go of the old personality. If you keep having this personality that you used to be in your mind, if you hold that image of who you were in the past, let's say even 1 week ago, I was a little bit less expressive, whatever. I was a little bit less energetic, or doing my tasks productively. I was more productive, If I keep holding who I was in my past as my image, as who I am, then I'm not progressing. Then I'm holding into that image. So whatever ideas, whatever shadow work I'm doing, it's gonna keep me in place, and it's gonna make me sink further and further, unless we admit that no, self is not, or identity is not permanent. It shouldn't be permanent. Yes, I have a collective of resources. I have my intellect. I have my philosophies, etc. But it doesn't mean that I have to be the same. And this makes people uncomfortable to see someone who is not fixed. To see someone developing and changing. Because when people see someone who's developing and changing, it starts putting their beliefs in question. And they don't want that. They don't want you to question their beliefs. So what they do is they start bringing you down. Oh, you're changing every time you're in a specific mindset, right? That's why the process of shadow work is important. So we don't really have to deal with other people to do the work, to do the emotional work, to do the mental work. So we have to do it on our own, because that's how it should be done. Other people will not understand you. Some people will guide you through this, but at the end of the day, you cannot depend on other people. We cannot depend on other people for our shadow work. Shadow work is a self-integration. Something that we do with ourself, something we do with truth, something we do with natural law, and something we do with time, and it's never ending. It's a lifetime commitment. So as we sit here and observe this concept of shadow work, we understand what Carl Jung is saying about the shadow, right? It's a vast universe of information. It's a collective unconscious. And it's the biggest archetype that could be. All the pains, imagine all the murders, all the wars, all the cries, all the fears, the horror, the terror, the nightmares, the dreams. It's all in the shadow. It affected people in a way that they weren't aware of it. The shadow is something that we have to work with. It's like, I accept who I am, and I accept the lessons that the past has to teach me. That's what's important. Once we ground ourselves in the present, and when we ground ourselves in our present, at the same time, we don't want to hold on to this present personality because we're changing. But we ground ourselves in a way that whatever we're doing, we're getting over it. If it's wrong or if it's bad. We have to understand that there's no such thing as perfect. We cannot be perfectionists. Perfectionism is a problem because it doesn't exist in nature. It doesn't exist. We can seek excellence. Okay. That is, for example, if I have a job, I do my job in an excellent way. Why? Because I want to do it in an excellent way. Because I don't want to do it in an unprofessional manner. That's doing it in excellence. But to seek perfectionism is a state of being obsessive, compulsive, having irrational predictions about ourselves, about others, and not feeling safe. It's coming, of course, from a state of fear. And if we dig deeper and deeper into it, we can know that it's definitely very old. It's as old as the parent-child relationship and their relationship with their parents, right? So it's very deep. So these fears that doesn't allow us, to be grounded in the present, to learn from life, and to accept change, are destroying us. If we are in continuous fear of not letting go of certain parts of us, you know. I will tell you an example. In my family, I'm known to change my mind not very easily, but I can't change my mind. And it scares people. That's because when I see logic, I follow logic. And it's the ego that wants you to hold on to an identity that doesn't serve you, or a idea that doesn't serve you. It's the ego, or the superego, which is much deeper and totally disgusting. The ego is good, but the superego, it's what society wants, right? Holding on to that identity is toxic, or that idea is toxic if it's not in alignment with truth. So we have to be okay with letting go of the parts that do not align with truth. And that process is shadow work. Because when we start letting go of these concepts, and not accepting what our parents told us, because they are our parents, right? Or what society told us, because we have to respect whatever culture they're in. We will start having a personality change. Now we are running on a different program. It's like a student who was fully convinced that university is really good for him. Okay, try to imagine a student, very intellectual, very smart, grade A student, wears the uniform full on, has a backpack, always on time, takes notes, passes all his exams, is a university student, right? Not a nerd. Let's call him an ordinary person. So that student fully committed to the university. Okay, because his parents told him that, okay, be a doctor and save the world, right? If truth came in here and said, wait, hold on. Actually, you can become a naturopath. Those people are more natural in their treatment and they will help people more. And look at those people who are following allopathic medicine. They have a lot of dead people on their hand. So now that student is confronted by truth. Okay, whether it's coming from angels or a child or a conspiracy crazy person, is confronted by something. The process of shadow work is, how can I integrate that? How can I integrate truth in my life and still operate in my life. Because when I'm faced or confronted by that truth, the shadow will start moving. Oh, your parents want you to be this and that. So the individual will not feel comfortable because of that idea. So the process of shadow work requires the individual to go within and integrate the truth that is within his world. What is the most important thing that he have to integrate? So it's very critical at that point for the person to be truthful about the situation and also be sensitive of the truth, right? Because there are certain things that come up, certain things, certain decisions. And he definitely doesn't want to take a decision before he knows what to do, right? He doesn't want to quit the university completely just because he heard this truth 2 days ago. And he doesn't want to join the naturopath school just because he heard that truth 2 days ago. So a process of time integration needs to take place. But not a denial. Not a denial of the truth or of that thing without investigating it. Not a denial, because that basically allows the shadow to take over without integration, without the process of integration. And of course, a denial of self and the higher self. The higher self is always bringing us these ideas, is attracting these mysterious ideas that helps us change and helps us develop and align ourselves with our divine path. But once we deny, we basically reject the truth and we reject integrating the truth. So the process of integrating that information for that student is not staying at home and not going to the university, or denying the truth or going to the process of integration is shadow work. This individual should question, why am I going to the university? Is it because of my parents? Is it because I really want to help the world? A process of integration with the truth needs to occur, because that idea relates to part of me, my personality, what I'm doing. So the person needs to question his life honestly and truthfully. What do I want? It's not what my parents want. Because if I do what my parents want, then I'm following my super ego that wants to be seen, that wants to beat myself down because I'm not conforming with society or the image that I draw out. So the authentic work is integrating myself instead of the outside world. Asking myself, that student, why am I going to this freaking university? What is my goal here? And if the student asked this question to himself in the right frequency, in the right vibration, that he really speaks it from the inside, and genuinely asks this question: why am I doing this? It will start the process of shadow work. Because now the answers that might come up for that individual are going to open up a lot of stuff that were unconscious. Maybe stuff related to his parents. Maybe stuff related to his grandparents being very sick and he needed to help someone, right? Maybe because he saw an advertisement as a child or saw a hero as a doctor. So there's a process of integration that needs to happen. The child needs to, or the individual needs to seek the truth, know the truth. And when we seek the truth, the path becomes so easy. And we will not be living in denial. We will be very happy. We will be very happy. And when it comes to this example, doctors and helping the world from health problems, it's a very common theme that happens. Luckily enough, I didn't go to the university, yet I'm a health coach. And I was very lucky that I didn't go to the university. And the reason why is because I refused that type of learning or the stuff that they were doing. And also part of it was it's not feasible. Wasn't feasible. But I wasn't actually interested in university or schools in general. So I was lucky. But for most people, most doctors, they step into the shoes of being a doctor because they want to be someone good in the world. With the few percentage of people who want to be doctors because they want to make money. Okay? As the child grows, he takes into these things into his mind these things that, I want to grow and be a doctor to make money, because that's what I concluded from everyone who's talking. When my parent talks to his doctor friend, he talks with so much passion. I want to be like that. I want to be like that doctor who gains respect from my parent or from society. Oh, look at that doctor. He's very rich. He's very attractive. He has a very great personality. People respect him. I want to be like him. That's the superego. It's not the self. Then the child is following a superego. The child is not following his divine individual right and self-purpose. So the child, once he starts creating all these delusions, he denies truth. He denies himself. And the shadow will start taking in. And because there's no true sense of drive that is coming from within, the drive is coming from without. The child is doing the hard work, going to the university, studying, passing the exams, waking up every morning to work on this and study it, not because of an internal purpose, because of an external purpose. So the shadow will start feeding it, right? Pain. Do it for your grandparents because they suffered, Irrational ideas will start coming in place to that individual, to that student, as he proceeds in life. He will start become a machine that is driven by the shadow. not authentically integrating it. So that individual will be driven by all these things to a certain point where, like, oh wait, why am I doing this? Yeah, because they are not connected with themselves. They reach to a point where, like, they know they're not doing what they love. They start feeling not good in whatever they're doing. Maybe if they picked the wrong niche, for example. If someone wanted to be a architect and then they became an engineer, for example. Very common thing. Reach to a point where they're not doing what they love. So to prevent all these mistakes from happening on and on and on and on, process of shadow work should be initiated. And once the process of shadow work is initiated, it's not gonna stop. It's not a holiday routine in Bahama Island or in Costa Rica that you do for 7 days or 14 days with a guru. No, it's a lifetime process. It's gonna be painful at first. At first it's gonna be painful because there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of truth that you have to deal with. You have to let go of regrets, not falling into loops. But then as you grow intellectually out of it, you'll start noticing that, oh, this is just me beating myself down and me not admitting to truth, or me not accepting change, not accepting that I'm progressing, that I'm getting over it. Right? So we intellectually grow out of that stagnation. But at first, once that shadow work is initiated by the individual, it's going to be painful. It's going to tell us certain things that we don't like, certain truth that we said that we were that or the other. It also will force us to basically admit that we were wrong in many occasions, right? It may also tell us that, oh, there's a different path that I can go into. Why am I going into this path? It forces us to step back and not rush things and give ourselves time so we can actually analyze and come up with the best path for ourselves, best career path, best decision to make. So we're not rushing decisions during that stage, because later on we're gonna have so much more insights and we gain more experience in terms of decision. But at first it's gonna be painful. The shadow work is gonna be painful, and it's definitely gonna be painful later on, but not as painful in the start. There is some pains that are necessary, right? And some pains that are not necessary. Falling into an endless loop of grief, for example, or regret, or guilt, or mistakes. These are not necessary. Why do you have to fall into the same mistake over and over again? Why do you have to fall into regret over and over again over the same situation, or grieve over the same situation over and over again? Isn't that a distraction? Isn't that a way for the shadow archetype to basically suck energy? But if we are integrating it properly, we basically get over it. We have a mistake, we have an awareness of it, we learn our lesson, we get over it, And we trust in our personality that next time I'm not gonna fall into it. Why? Because I'm more attentive. That's why it's important for us to study philosophy. Philosophy helps us get equipped with certain things that we need to know. Like, for example, I think the principle for masculinity is attention. If we are attentive, then we are masculine. And not masculine as if like girls or women shouldn't be attentive. No, it's a masculine thing, not man. Man is different than masculine. The masculine principle is being attentive in its origin. That's what I think. But probably, of course, it can be further discussed. But philosophy helps us memorize or understand the world or ourselves or the main concepts of life. And once we do that, we are being more aware of it. So I'm in my day-to-day life constantly aware that I have to be more attentive. So when I'm doing the dishes, when I'm doing my job, I'm trying to do it in an excellent manner. I'm not scrolling on my phone when the boss is not around. I'm finishing my work perfectly. I'm enjoying it. So I'm having my best time. And then later on, I can do whatever I want. Not because of fear of the outside world, because I want to live my life in an attentive manner and a moral manner. And the same thing with our chores or with our work. We can do dishes, for example, and it can take us 30 minutes if we are not attentive. If we are attentive, maybe it will take us 20 minutes. That's 10 minutes less, because now we are more focused, we're more attentive, not more stressed. More attentive, meaning that we are doing it in an excellent manner. We're not rushing it, we're not thinking, we're not stressing. Not only doing it in 20 minutes maybe we're doing it better. We're cleaning it better. So being attentive is one of those philosophies that I keep in my mind throughout my day. I want to be attentive, right? So once we have these philosophies ingrained in us, in our psyche, then we have a moral compass to hold dear to our heart as we go in life. The more that we have these important concepts, the more direction that we have in this journey of integrating the shadow and shadow work. So the person who have knowledge about the philosophies, about the concepts that are important for individuation, for introspection, for calming the mind, for listening to our true self, for knowing the mistakes of society. Once we have a process of learning all that stuff, once we dedicate ourselves to learn all that stuff, that's when we are gonna be more aware of the things that are happening around us. And the more that we start taking it seriously, writing down the concepts, studying the concepts. For example, I watched a 2-hour video, for example, or a lecture. I take the important concepts and I go deep into those keywords, like the keyword attention. If you listen to a lot of Krishnamurti, you understand that one of the biggest terms that he talks about is attention. So I memorized that. When I think about attention, now I have Krishnamurti to back it up. And if I want to reinforce that superpower, I'm gonna listen to Krishnamurti, right? And I can go into my imagination of how important that is in my meditations, and continuously memorize that and live it, be it. When I listen to Ayn Rand, she talks a lot about reason and logic, right? That's a concept I'm gonna keep in my mind field. I'm gonna be walking in my life having all these concepts orbiting me like planets. I'm gonna keep those planets in my mind field. Just like certain planets have certain frequencies, certain vibrations that are affecting us, I want these concepts around me. So we start learning about these concepts. Those concepts will help us in the process of shadow work. So we are intellectually growing out of it, but also physically. So this is the second part of the equation. It's not only intellectually, but it's also a physical process where we are observing our breath, our movements, our pains, any tension in our body, right? Moving our body, moving our energy. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm still doing that, but that is what it requires. It requires both aspects. You cannot do one without the other. It requires the process of psychosomatic healing. That is what Alexander Lowen was doing with his clients. His clients used to have a lot of parent-child relationships problem, right? Some of his clients had a lot of problems with their parents. Their parents used to hit them, or maybe they grew up with parents who were drunk, etc. So that child grew up to have a lot of complexes, problems with themselves and with others. And so they started creating this self-image, which is led by the superego. So Alexander Lowen helped them connect with their body. First of all, be aware of the truth, right? That your parent is blah, blah, blah. You know, in most cases, the client will, like, even though the father, for example, used to beat them or used to be a bad person, terrible person, get drunk, not ask about them, whatever, hit them, the child would be thinking good about the parent. So the child is identifying with the abuser. And what would that lead to is the child will start abusing himself or itself. The child will start abusing the child itself. So Alexander Lowen will make them aware of the truth. That is the light sparking into the shadows. Will make them aware of the truth. So that person will know that, oh, your father was an asshole. So the individual will start having problems processing it. But if they're truthful and really genuine about their healing, they will rationalize it and see, yes, actually they are. They're not denying. So they are. Yes, my parent did put me in debt. Yes, my parent did put me in a bad situation, giving me bad decisions. And yes, my parent did seduce me, did use me. Yes, I was thinking about my parent in a positive way, or thinking about my parent that they are wise and they are all knowing, and I held them as the best image, right? And I followed their commands, their orders, all that stuff, and I looked up for them, and I was wrong. Once they do that, once they admit that, okay, their parent did something wrong with them, now they're not identifying with them. At first, they think that the parent is good. They're solid about it. They really think that their parent is good. So unless they start questioning it, or someone like Alexander Lowen or a good friend will start helping them really reveal the truth, and they're honest about it, they're gonna start taking more responsibility. They will start standing with self, real self. So the truth is coming up. So now what Alexander Lowen does, he holds space for them. And the best space to hold for yourself is your breath. If you're not breathing, you're gonna be anxious. So during those stages of us unlocking the truth or doing shadow work, we have to be calm. We don't have to be anxious. We have to be aware, accept in a place of acceptance, not of acceptance of what has been happened to us in a bad way. For example, if someone did wrong to us, then we forgive them and we just accept it, and then we, as if nothing happened. No, that's denial. But in terms of acceptance of like, okay, I'm not grieving and letting myself down or going into a hole, right? I'm breathing, I'm staying strong as I'm doing this process. So what Alexander Lowen does is that he engages the practitioner, the client, with a practice of breathing. So breathing exercises. What that does is it makes the individual more sensitive. If we are not breathing, that means we're shutting down our emotions. We're suppressing. So Alexander Lowen will help them open up with their breath. That's number one. Then, according to that specific case, he will help the individual to let go of the most important emotion that they have to let go. Some clients, it is anger. Some client, it's crying. Right? So they have to vocalize it or express it physically. The physical element is very important. The element of expression. Now, Alexander Lowen used to give his clients different methods of expressing physically, like slapping the bed with a bat or a racket, or kicking the bed and saying certain words, right, that related to the client, like no, why, screams and cries. But of course there are different methods of expression as well, like Qigong, for example. Whatever expression that you intuitively want, don't go with it with a book. I think that's very important, because during that process of shadow work, the last thing that you want to do is follow a script. So it could be doing whatever activity that you want. It could be, just letting go. Even at certain point you have to scream. Just do what is necessary to move that energy and not be stuck, because that energy that you are reaching out to is gonna weigh you down, and the only way to let go of that previous energy and step into the new personality is to express. Going for a walk is one thing, of course, but doing that expression because you feel certain things, certain tension in your body, that's something else. If you go for a walk, that's because you think that you have to go for a walk, or because you have it on your schedule, go for a walk. But to sense that, oh, I think here my hip needs a little bit of stretching, then I'll do it. That's listening to yourself, to your body. That's integrating the mind and the body, you know. So for example, I have a lot of tension here now. I have to listen to that. It's truth. It's part of truth to listen to the areas in the body that needs movement. So it's part of that shadow work. Because if we want to go into a full-on truth and integrate change, we have to do it from a physical perspective as well. That is stepping into a new personality. That is expressing our sound, right? Our energy. And even vocalizing it. I don't want to do it here on the microphone, but you can scream, you can say whatever you want. You can stand in front of a mirror and do it. There is no book that will describe that, because you are the book. You can take ideas from me, from someone else, but at the end of the day, it's the process of integrating the truth, bringing out the shadow, the things that you were not aware of, the things that affected you, and going through it. And it's a lifestyle, it's a lifetime process. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you didn't, and leave a comment also down below if you made it to this point. Also, I will leave a link in the description for my community. It's for $15 only for those who want to join, and inside there we will have courses that I'm still working on, and also a community call that we will be doing every week. So yeah, it was great talking about this. Leave your comment down below if you made it to this video, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one.